Now, I call it dining and ditching. We see this every time when our leaders, the elected politicians who do whatever they damn well please, decide that they're going to do something that most of the population just isn't keen about. When is it released? Yep, EOD, Friday afternoon, end of the day. It gets buried in a news cycle. People might hear about it on their drive home, but by the time they get back to the workplace on Monday, it's long gone. The news cycles will propel forward what they want, like this 1-year anniversary, and drop the important messages. And here we go. Friday morning, we at least got this early, because you know who's releasing this one. GOP blocks bipartisan probe of deadly January 6th riot. How many of us thought this would be bipartisan? There's nothing bipartisan about what's going on right now. We're in the middle of a coup. There would be no fairness. There would be no point. Ask Ashley Babbitt's family. How about the mother of the police officer who died due to injuries, who immediately stated that no, he came home fine, and then had another medical incident that they took him, and even that was documented that was not related to events of that day. And yet all of a sudden the news is using that poor mom over the last week when those are not her words. They're saying that that is in fact what she said, and in fact that is not what she said in interviews or documents shortly thereafter. Nobody thought this would be bipartisan. Did you live through the Russian investigation? How about Maricopa? How's that going for you? Every day they're doing the audits, dirt boxes are flying in the sky up above. This election was not just taken by foreigners. This was set up by a global entity, and most of that is based here in the United States. And if it wasn't based here, then we have plenty of individuals who ceded to the cause, who stepped aside and let it happen, and even got their fingers dirty as they allowed this to happen. And even worse than that, when audits and questions were brought up with specific evidence, they said, Shaggy style, it wasn't me, it didn't happen, you didn't see what you thought you saw. Because we're all idiots, we're just flying blindly. And I can tell you we're idiots, because if you're still wearing a mask, even though most of the United States does not have mask laws anymore, and yet you walk in the different stores and many people still have them on. If you're not standing up for your own rights, don't expect somebody else to. So what else do we have here? Oh, here's a shock. LA Times reports Uber reneges, because Uber is an upstanding company. They were founded on the concept that the CEO had a co-working space in San Francisco and talked somebody out of this idea, saying it was a bad idea, it would never work. Meanwhile, he was getting funders lined up. So as soon as that individual folded, he ran with the company, stole technology along the way, negotiated deals with top engineers. When they went public, most of those engineers ended up in a hole because they had worked for years at slightly lower salaries, but with the promise of stock options at an IPO, which is common. Except behind the scenes at some point, Uber shifted the debt load. So the tax liability went on to the employees, not at the corporate structure. Uber is the epitome of the devil running a business. It always has been. And yet here, no shock, Uber reneges on the flexibility it gave to drivers to win the support for Prop 22 in California. Now, as you remember, they spent millions of dollars on the books, really much more than that, and used their vast network for emails and communication and arm twisting in order to make people believe that in fact, they were better off as independent contractors. If we don't pay you as much and we don't give you benefits and we don't give you medical and we don't give, but hey, you get to drive your own car, therefore we as a company don't have to deal with the insurance, the depreciation of the asset, then you can be independent and you can make your own hours. But if you don't work certain hours, we don't give you more hours. And the hours that you work, if you don't like what we give you, then we'll cut you out even more. A lot of punishment here. And yet they went ahead and said, you know what? We will treat them better. We are going to do a good job because we really respect our employees. This is how much they respect their employees. I don't know why anybody uses Uber or Lyft at this point. Now, Lyfter is a much more, the company has more integrity, but they're still following in line. Uber has no integrity and never has. And here they renege on their deal to get a proposition passed to protect themselves while driving thousands of people into bankruptcy, literally driving their own cars. So kudos to the GOP for blocking what would have been another ridiculous waste of taxpayer money. When people are ready to stand up for the truth, then let's have a fair conversation and a fair investigation. Until then, we're tired of the manipulation. Don't waste your breath. The sad thing is, people actually voted for this. They're not your leaders. They're not elected by you. We've learned that through the events of November, many of these people were put into place. And you're told that as a taxpayer and being representative, that your voice was heard. And now we know that your voice doesn't matter. In fact, they'll just tell you to shut up and sit in the corner, as they have all year, and set up scams against us to try to set us up. This is not working. As we go into the summer months, we've got a lot of decisions to make. And the decisions don't need to be, how can you support your community? They don't need to be, what can you do for your company? They don't need to be, what can you do to help somebody else? If you are one of the people who won the lottery of a big tech job or executive, start giving and sharing and figuring out how you can help your community and change rules within your organization. If you're one of the people that's bootstrapping just to try to get by with your family, then this is the time to preserve, buckle down, and figure out how you can be CEO of your own household. And from the inside out, you can rebuild, grow, and rebuild our communities, our states, and our country from the ground up. And we will come out roaring, just as this country does every time. Just as California goes, so will the nation. And just as the United States goes, so will the globe. Let's stand up for people other than ourselves. And sometimes that takes a few steps back in order to run forward. Blessings.